is an absolute pleasure to be here in person with you all. I have not stood at the front of a room like this for 2 years. So I'm very happy to be here. Thank you, everybody, for having me. So, 14 years ago, I worked for a marketing consultancy based in these very streets of Soho. And I loved my job, probably for the first time ever. One day, a board meeting took place on the second floor and ended rather abruptly. And it transpired that in that board meeting, 3 of the 4 directors that ran the business that I loved walked out. They walked out to go and set up a competitor organisation. So imagine, if you will, for a moment, how it must have felt for the one remaining director of that business left standing solo. Those people had worked together for many years, they'd been friends for many years, they'd run this business together for some years. So the one remaining director was personally hurt, professionally in turmoil. I had a choice to make. I could sit there at my desk drinking my tea, love a cup of tea, drinking my tea, hoping that better days would come. I could panic and get a new job, or I could step up and help. And so that's what I chose to do. I could see somebody that I had untold respect for in trouble, and I stepped up and I helped them. So I'm Emily Chadwick. I'm CEO of Marketing Logic. It is now my own business that I have run successfully for 10 years. And for anybody that's interested, those people that went off to set up the competitor organisation, it no longer exists. So I don't have a clicker. Anybody have a clicker? So you don't even know what I'm talking about yet.
There you go.
Thank you very much, Scott. Right. That work? No, that don't work. See, there you go. We should have had a clicker briefing, Kimberly, shouldn't we? So today, I am going to draw on that experience and talk about what I think it takes to make a successful business-to-business entrepreneur. There's 2 sides to any business. There is the professional and the personal, and I'm going to come at this today from a fairly personal perspective of my experiences, because at the end of the day, there is no business without the people, right? As Kimberly quite rightly put it. So let's look a little bit. March8 have asked me today to talk to you under this theme of educate. So what makes you confident that I have the experience to do so? Let's look then at my professional career and how that shaped up through time. I did a university course that was essentially marketing and management theory. And it was one of the first courses to include a placement year. I saw myself going to work for an agency, and it was going to be fabulously fun and marvellously creative, and we were going to have a great time. And then one day I thought, well, if this is going to be my career, I should probably get a solid grounding in an institution like IBM. So that's what I chose to do. And I thoroughly enjoyed my time there. I did my placement year, I went back as a graduate, my career was progressing, which was all fine until they're like a lot of professional development meetings. I don't know what organisations you're in, but one must always have a professional development plan. And in these meetings, people like to ask you, so, Emily, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? This lady laughing. She knows. So I looked at the somewhat fuzzy grey carpet tiles. I looked at the senior suits above me, and I considered the many rungs of the ladder that I would need to climb to think where I should be in 5 years' time. The only answer I could come up with, not here. So, before I got found out, I thought I'd best make my own exit, so I jumped. Probably too soon. I consider my brief stint as a recruitment consultant to be character building. And I absolutely admire anybody that makes a profession out of it, because my experience is jolly hard. So we move on and we move into the organisation that I started talking to you about with the 3 directors left. So 3 directors have gone. Our CEO at the time is in a bit of a pickle. And we've got many projects to run with many enterprise organisations. And there's 20 junior consultants sort of looking around as if to say, who's going to help me deliver this here? So I helped that process. And we ran that business for a couple of years until we managed it through an acquisition into a production agency. Cue my stint in an agency. So I became client services director of that agency, and our goal was to set up a consultancy division within it, which we did. At an appropriate moment in time, we triggered an exit from that organisation, and that is where Marketing Logic, the business that I co-founded, that I still run today, started. We set it up with a view that, obviously I'd never run my own business before, much like Kimberly. So we set it up with the view that my business partner, the one remaining director, would work day to day in the business for the first couple of years. Kind of give me a bit of a view on how to, run the ropes. And that's what he did. And after that couple of years, he stepped back into a chairman role, and he still provides that chairman role and support to us today, but hasn't been hands-on in the business for 8 years or so. So I run everything from a day-to-day perspective. I consider myself very fortunate to have had such an excellent business partner, confidant, and ultimately friend. So when we founded that business, it was about helping businesses to scale. We worked largely with sales and marketing tech businesses that were at a point in their life cycle where they really wanted to grow, and they didn't necessarily know how to do it. So we drew on our previous experience, either to help them prove to investors that they were ready for that growth, or to use the investment that they had gained to help them prove the results and the return on investment that they've been given. Too many investments. So we took one of those businesses. It was an international organisation, a German business, and it had no referenceability that anybody would know and or understand within the UK market. And we grew them from no presence here to $4 million in revenues in the first 3 years. And we took that experience and we applied it to other businesses from a strategic perspective. And as we did so, we found that we were starting to use Salesforce. I don't know, raise your hands, who's familiar with the Salesforce platform? Lovely, lots of people. CRM software, marketing automation, managing your day-to-day operations for those that don't, reporting on your business. So one day I went into a meeting with our Salesforce account manager. We're configuring Salesforce for our customers because we have to do so to demonstrate the results that we're delivering as a business. And I sat down, he said to me, Emily, this is crazy. You're configuring the Salesforce platform. You have the strategic knowledge that we lack at a small to medium business level within Salesforce. Why don't you formalise that partnership? And I said, it's funny you should say that, but I was going to have the same conversation. And so for the last 5 years, we have been on that journey. And now 95% of our business is as a Salesforce implementation partner. For anybody that needs Salesforce. So that's what I've been doing for the last 10 years. But that's only part of me, my organisation, my life. Because these two things, for me, are not mutually exclusive, right? So what has been going on from a personal perspective whilst that's been happening? In my mid-20s, I was fortunate enough to gain 2 stepchildren. They were very young at the time, and this year they will be 18 and 22 years old. I don't know where the time goes. But I would say, forget all this. They are the hardest, most rewarding thing that I have ever done, and I'm pretty confident standing here now that if you turn around and ask them, they'd say I've done an all right job. But most rewarding, most difficult, and have taught me much more than any of this stuff. So, again, 2 stepchildren. I then married their father the same year as I set up my business. Lots going on all at any one time. We had a daughter. And then, unfortunately, we got divorced. Obviously, you're together a long time. You'd think we'd made these decisions earlier on, but we didn't. That's not how life happens. So in the same year, in the same amount of time as I've been running my business, I've got married, had a daughter, got divorced, bought my own home, and we've managed through that. I was hospitalised for a while, and now, we've managed to navigate COVID. So it's not that these two things are mutually exclusive. If you are an entrepreneur, you will know these things have got to come together. And why that's important is, like Kimberly was saying, you've got to work out what your non-negotiables are. Whatever profession we're in, right? We've got lives. And for me, I know there's plenty of statistics about how if one were to work 10% more hours, one would generate 40% more revenue. I can't do that. Not enough hours in the day. But there are certain things that I won't compromise on personally. So I have a daughter. Pre-COVID, she used to go in breakfast club every day, after school club, and I said, no, going back, I'm not doing that anymore. I've made things work by circumstance and situation. So now my non-negotiables are, I don't want her to go into breakfast club. I do want to be there one day a week at the classroom door to pick her up. And I don't want to be working every single evening and weekends. However, I do love my job. I'm very passionate about it. I've been doing it for a long time. And I also don't want to compromise that because that's important to me. And that drives me and that gives me passion. And that's an important thing to show her also. So I do work some evenings. And there are compromises that I make from a professional perspective, from a personal perspective to power that professionally. So, big picture then, what do I think based on that experience is really important about being a successful entrepreneur, in my case, in a business-to-business sense? And I think there are three things. There's what's going on inside yourself, there's what's going on inside your organisation, and there's what's happening external to that organisation that is influencing it. So we'll look at each one of those in turn, and what I think about those is important. In here, I am a big believer in making your own luck. Kimberly's story, my story, born out of circumstance, right? Those of you that are listening will have known that there were 20 junior consultants all in the same position as me when those directors walked out. We all had the same opportunity in front of us. But I chose to make something of it. The opportunities are there. We need to be bold enough to take those first little steps that you were talking about to move forward. And the next step becomes easier. Knowing what you want is really important. We talked about the non-negotiables. Know from a business perspective, what do you want to achieve? What do you want that business to do? What types of what type of organisation do you want it to be and feel like? Because it comes from you. Harnessing your nervous energy. I was nervous this morning. I stood up in front of a group of people like you for years. And I have a friend, she's a very senior level in a huge global enterprise organisation. She's much better at this stuff than I am. But it gets her. The nervous energy really gets her and she really finds it hard. She says, you're so much better at this stuff than me because you don't get nervous. Everybody gets nervous. You just got to really try and use that nervous energy to make you passionate and powerful in the way you move forward. Otherwise, it's going to eat you up. Never stop believing. This one is easier said than done. We've had tricky times in our 10 years. It's not all been smooth sailing. As any entrepreneur, I'm sure, unless they are very lucky, although we don't believe in that, we'll tell you. In the first couple of years, there were months when we're running month to month, cash flow wise. I'm thinking, where's the next salary bill coming from? I don't know, I can't see it. You've just got to trust yourself, the things you're doing, trust the process. And then we hit May 2020. And for the first time in all those years, I stopped believing. Fortunately, only for a couple of days. But bearing in mind, we had come 5 years of business, so we then pivoted our business completely to invest in building a partnership with Salesforce. I had loads of money in the bank before that, you know, and then you've invested so much of it in scaling this organisation in a different direction, pivoting the business, and then there's no money coming in for months. So it got me. Don't do what I did. Unfortunately, that's when you've got to trust in your team, the people around you, right? My COO, I wouldn't want to run the business day to day without him, quite honestly. My accountant, horribly irritating, but frustratingly wise. And so between them, they kind of pulled me out of it. They said, look, it's going to be fine. We just trust the process. It'll be fine with it. And it's all obviously going gangbusters now. But, you know, try to not stop believing because it invariably works out somehow. So inside your organisation, a bit like making your own luck, I'm a firm believer in leading from the front, right? Think about what you want your organisation to be. Think about how you want the people to act day to day. Express those behaviours yourself. There's no good in saying this, you know, one rule for thee and another rule for me. Lead from the front, show them how you want things to be done. And that fits to culture as well, right? There's so many times I've worked with customers and they've said to me, yes, but the younger members of the team, they like to do this and these people like to do this and therefore we must do X, Y, Z to build our culture. No, it doesn't work like that. Unless you build a culture based on what you can sustain, what you believe is important, what you want from that organisation, it will fail. The people will see through it and it won't grow in the organic way that it should. Now, for our team, there are certain things that we love to do. You know, we are back in this world. We've always been in the world, but now we are back in the day-to-day of commuting. We all are in the office on a Wednesday. That's it. That's our day. We've all agreed what the day is. Everybody happy with the day. And so, you know, on that day, we will all have lunch together. The team have a budget, X amount of money. You can rinse all your money on your lunches, or we can do team activity every so often. You choose, they decide, we all work together to work out what that's going to be, who's going to organise it, and it's those sorts of things for me that are important because it creates a fun atmosphere to work. We spend so much time there. That's important to our culture. So think about what you want and then it will be sustainable. Giving your people to fail, I am a massive, massive, massive believer in this because our business would not be successful if our team didn't trust that if they try something and they mess it up, it's going to be okay. You know, it's the ability to say, no, go try this, go learn, go move on. You know, we're working with Salesforce. It's a massive, massive product with so many different nuances to it. And it's constantly evolving. There's 3 releases a year. You've got to go and learn something. So giving them the power to fail and be okay to come back into the circle of trust and say, I messed this up. You know. But the amount of times that leads to success is much greater than these few things that we maybe have to pick up over here, right? So trust the team and they will generate a return for you. Outside of your organisation, one of the things that I have really missed, and personally, to be honest, I've probably compromised a little myself over the last couple of years, is my network. You know, it's got smaller because there's only so much time and I've got family at home and I've got, you know, a business to run through COVID. And so I've only really kept in touch with, you know, the inner circle. But that outer network can be so powerful. And it took me a long time to realise, as an entrepreneur, I think it's hard for you to open up to other people about your failures. Not even necessarily failures, but challenges. I've got this situation. I don't know how to deal with it. Somebody else has seen it before. But you've got to find the right people to make that network with you and to partner with them and to trust them. 80-20 rule, 80% of the time, they're going to come back with valuable advice and words of wisdom and a different angle and looking at the problem that you hadn't seen before. So networks can be very powerful things as an entrepreneur. Hopefully we'll take some relationships away from here today, right? We're all here to learn from each other. Knowing what the right customer looks like, being prepared to say no is very important. For me, I had a prospect call the other day. Very lovely chap says to me, "What does the right business look like for you?" And I stalled. I said, "I expect you're probably wanting me to base this answer on size of business or industry or amount of revenue." And actually that's not, we have our strengths as far as industries and things are concerned. But the most important thing is that the customer's journey, their vision, their roadmap is interesting, that we can see where they're trying to get to and we will be able to help them with it, and that they trust us to help them get there. And those are the most important characteristics for me as to what a good customer looks like for us. And so when I feel that there's not a fit, it's okay to say no. It's okay to stand back. It's okay to walk away and say, somebody else's turn. Because that's what's going to protect your business growth, is knowing what the right time is to take things on and when it's time to say no. So, can anybody tell me? I should have had a plant at this point, right? So when you think a clever person would have had a plant. Can anybody tell me what the kind of common theme has been, whether we're looking inside ourselves, inside our organisation or outside our organisation?
It's okay not to know all the answers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. She's good. Like, first up with the questions down here. Thank you very much. It's okay not to know everything, but you've got to... Oh, my goodness, that was a... But wrong button. Sorry, Scott. But you've got to trust. You've got to trust yourself first and foremost. We said trust the team. Hire the right people and trust them. We said trust your network. Be prepared to be open. You don't know all the answers, but trust yourself to take those first small steps that we were talking about earlier, and it will grow. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, another brilliant session. Thank you, Emily.
Why, thank you.
I've got one quick question before we ask the audience, as they say. You mentioned that you stopped believing for a few days.
I did.
So how did you turn that around?
I think it's it can be really lonely, right? Being an entrepreneur, it ultimately is my business now, and you can't always express how you feel about everything, so it can be really lonely. So leaning on the people around me and being prepared to trust that it was okay to say to my COO, to my accountant, I don't know if we can do this. You're just looking at months, not many, but months of nothing as far as revenue is concerned. And I know, though, when my accountant says, no, there's plenty of money in the bank and plenty of road to run, you'll be okay. But you've got to trust those other people and trust the process. That's it. That's all you can do. Then nobody could tell me what the outcome was going to be.
Is that hard as a leader to trust people?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is, because I've had some horror stories in my time. I don't need to go into it, but, when you don't hire the right people, it hurts the business for a long time. And it's really hard to recover from. And we've had to do it probably twice. But you can lose a year. Even if they're not damaging your organisation internally somehow. The loss of revenues from hiring the wrong person in a sales role, for example, is tricky. So yes, it's hard. Yeah.
Okay, any questions? Okay, yes, the lady just there, please.
So how do you hire the right people?
Well, for me, it's two aspects. I normally like to have three, but I see two in this instance. It comes back to that culture point, right? Because I think that's really where everything starts. Think about the impression that you want to project in that interview, how you want to make that person feel, because that gives the impression of what to expect when they come into your organisation. Ask the right questions, not just about the nuances of their skills, but about them as a person. So that's one side. And then obviously there is being true to knowing what you want your business to do and achieve, and making sure that you really know what the skills are that you need to help you get there. Because, that's important. Does that answer your question?
Yeah,
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to have to leave there. As I said earlier, if anyone has any questions, please just reach out to Emily direct, but we need to move on. But thank you, Emily. Another great session. Thank you.
Thank you.